everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray. And last time you saw us, we talked about adventures in TTRPGs. We talked about the latest season, Stranger Things, and we talked about Dimension 20. And now we are going to be talking about two things that have nothing to do with those things or each other. Because fuck synchronicity. Because today we're going to be talking about the acclaimed, the beloved, the masterful,
17
silent.
problems.
I should have seen it coming. I should have fucking seen it coming. Yes, we're going to be talking about Konami and Team Silent, Silent Hill 2, and we're going to be talking about the latest album from country music star Walker Hayes, his newest album, 17 Problems. And last time we tied it up. It is 4-4 right now, so that means it is anyone's game. So let's start out with Walker Hayes. And Jen,
hmm
why did you do this to me? Did you know? Did you hear this beforehand? Is this a joke? Am I a joke to you? I will never forgive you. I hope you know this. So Jen,
So,
why? Why?
how did we get here? Let's start from the beginning of our relationship with Mr. Walker Hayes, which is
Even fancy like Applebee's.
the first time I was ever on this channel. It was because I bullied Riley into letting me bring on and review Country Stuff, the album, Walker Hayes's acclaimed and very successful project. And Walker Hayes is a guy who's been around in the country music scene for a long time. His debut album, Reason to Rhyme, was all the way back in 2013, back when he had the Justin Bieber haircut. And
It's rough.
and he even had an album that he released in between Country Stuff, the album, and Now called New Money, which I did not ask you to listen to.
Thank you.
Luckily for you, because I did. And do you want to know what's on that album? A lot of country R&B tributes. And a
Okay.
song called Good With Me about how everybody is talking way too much about politics, but I just like beer and hanging out with my friends. My son thinks trans is short for Transformers. My daughter thinks money grows on trees. These are actual lyrics on this song.
Oh, the horrible thing about it, Jen, is that I didn't doubt that that was true for a moment.
And so 17 Problems came out back in August. And I sat down one day and I listened to it because I had to know if it would be worth using for this show. I wasn't gonna make us do it for our like initial album reviews that we were doing for the first couple arcs of Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray because I thought, no, if this is good enough, if this is interesting enough to talk about, that's the thing. I wouldn't have done this if I didn't think there was more to talk about than just, oh man, there's a new Walker Hayes album and it's bad, just like
This
the
is
other Walker Hayes
not
album that we
country
talked
stuff,
about a
the
couple of
album
years
two.
ago.
This is
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
not the same as the previous album we covered in any way. This is a very, very different beast.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing about Country Stuff, the album, is that we very much went in on it being a construction of a bunch of potential very big singles in the wake of the success of Walker Hayes' biggest hit, Fancy Like. And that was a shift for him because Walker Hayes has always kind of been moving around and been kind of changing what kind of artist he even wants to be. It seems like every rollout for every new single that he was putting out leading up to Fancy Like, he was workshopping his image and workshopping what he wanted to bring to the table as a performer, but always kind of keeping this consistent drive to, make fun music, to feed his kids because he's a hardworking man who loves writing songs. And 17 Problems is a very interesting project because I wouldn't readily describe it as a concept album, but nevertheless, it feels like the product of a very jaded mind
Oh,
and
for sure.
a personality type that has brushed up against the highly politicized nature of pretty much all hobby spaces and artistic venues and is completely unable to respond to that. And I've been thinking about this in dialogue with Gamergate because Gamergate in 2016 meant that like every entertainment avenue was now a political battleground. And this is
Uh-huh.
now extended into things that like everybody cares about even a little bit because you have the increased politicization of things like NASCAR, which has affected the country music industry
Yep.
immensely. Surprised if you don't know that, but there is a lot of overlap there in terms of what goes on in NASCAR and what goes on in Nashville affect a lot of the same people, strangely enough. But Walker Hayes is not as connected to that. What he is connected to is women and alcohol. And 17 Problems is an album mostly about various negative thought patterns with regards to women and alcohol that occasionally flirts with a more positive spin on this by doing the country R&B hybrids, which I can't believe is a thing I have to say in a category that I now legitimately have to deal with. Where do we even start with how this album
Okay.
introduces the themes that are going to define it? Because should we just start with Neon Lights?
Okay.
Because holy shit.
We have to start with the first two songs here because
Which
this
seems like a weird thing to say, right? It seems obvious to say, well, we have to start at the
well,
beginning. But I really do mean that the two most baffling things on this album happen in its first two songs.
oh, unquestionably. It is genuinely I was taken aback, honestly, when I started listening to this. And the problem with Country Stuff, the album, was that it was just pure facsimile. And we talked a lot. I mean, like, honestly, that's a pretty good episode of the show if you want to hear our more in-depth thoughts on Mr. Hayes. And I'm sure he made it onto our worst of the year list that year as well. So I'm sure he features there. But the problem with Country Stuff, the album, was not that it lacked authenticity, but merely that it lacked anything. It was so insubstantial as a record on any level. There was just no angle you could approach that in which, like, if Country Stuff, the album, was a meal, there's no one who would walk up to it and come away from it not still hungry. It's impossible. It's just not satisfying as an experience. But I would struggle to call anything on that album that isn't the songwriting incompetent. The first two songs on this are incompetent in ways I did not think Walker Hayes was capable of because it indicates a almost a bit of regression as a musician. I think the songwriting in these first two songs is so genuinely poor. Like, okay, Neon Lights, opening track here, right? First thing he mentions, of course, are a highball glass and Bud Light. You can't make it up. But it is quite baffling when I listen to the stanza on which Hayes talks about having sad eyes that a woman can't see because the Bud Light sign doesn't shine on the truth. This is, I can't stress this enough, one of the worst metaphors I've ever bore witness to in any medium, and this is done within the first 10 seconds of this song. We also get great little moments like, it's camouflaging my broken heart is about as meaningless and baffling too, both because it's utterly redundant and fucking ridiculous. But how, I just need to ask Walker this question. How the fuck is a Bud Light sign obscuring your sadness? What the hell are you talking about? The jarring transition that the chorus with the trap hi-hats that it goes into is so alarming that I felt my fight or flight go off. Like when he transitions into this, he starts speaking as though we know who he's talking to in this song, even though the perspective is already meaningfully shifted in the songwriting twice. The conceit of this song, everybody, I want you to pay attention here, is that Hayes perceives neon lights, particularly the ones in bars, they are the blue lights hiding the blues, as he puts it, which just raises so many questions. Like, why only the blue ones? How do neon lights obscure anything when they are, in fact, lights? Red rose to cover the pain. How? Tears and beers go together like crying and rain? Is he trying to win an Olympic gold medal in most cliched songwriting of all time? Because this at least gets him the bronze. Like, Walker insists on this premise multiple times that the lights somehow masks his heartbreak rather than doing what lights functionally do as household objects. Maybe if he was trying to put this more poetically or was trying to turn a phrase of some kind, you could make this work. But the keep it simple, stupid lyrics and structure do not invite deeper thematic readings here. I love what he talks about, how a green light, it makes the cigarette smoke look pretty, implying that the lights do in fact illuminate detail, which totally flies in the face of the song. Like, of course, at the end, we have to do this thing where we objectify women with numbers to boot. One
Three
minute
looks
and
like a 7 and a 10 looks like an 8. They might go home together. Girl, just
one
wait.
minute and 30 seconds into this song, and he literally just repeats the verse that he just said over again, structurally bridged by the lamest guitar solo ever. This is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the worst written Walker Hayes song because nothing about this works. Like, it's not even that it's like, oh, I don't agree with the like conceit of the song. It's just that like functionally, it's like, did you even try? Like, really? This is it? This is a song you put on an album where you talk about how neon lights make you more difficult to see?
I should also say, we should talk about this. Country Stuff, the album, has production choices that I
Mm-hmm.
disagree with,
Mm-hmm.
but all of the songs are mixed and mastered competently to the point where they are listenable and the components of the songs are identifiable,
Yes.
and the way that the songs are structured make the moves that the songs are making sonically make sense.
Yes.
I'm here to tell you that the genre fusions on this album, we've completely lost the plot on how to integrate digital production into our country songs because there are so many songs on this record that just for some reason have a trap hi-hat on them or for some reason have these very synthetic drums on them that are louder in the mix than anything else that drown out what sounds like real instrumentation, real strings, real accordion, real guitar, real keys. There's concrete instrumentation going on here that's just being drowned out by Walker thinking that he has to have some sort of element of electronic or R&B music on here. And it just never works. Like there's never a
Oh,
point
goodness, no.
where I've heard a trap hi-hat on a country song and thought it was a good idea. Not a single time. However, I've found new lows by which that method of production can reach. With this album. Holy crap, man. I
So,
what's the worst trap hi-hat on this one?
well, before we skip to that, I need to talk about Pocket Knife,
In
which,
my pocket like a pocket
like,
knife.
I don't know if it's just me, but this gave me some real Lucas Graham flashbacks with the drinking at 13 stuff at the start. Like,
Oh my God.
but like there is, I will admit, this is a better song than the first one purely by merit of the fact that there are ideas worth talking about within it because we are talking about our experience growing up. And the mere mention in one lyric of Walker Hayes' brother going to prison and him being afraid of him when he got out of prison is the only time I have ever been remotely interested in hearing Hayes talk about something. Like, I mean, legitimately, I was like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. My ears perked up. That's an interesting idea.
I felt
This
the
is not
exact
re
same way.
well, like it was like, oh, we're actually going to talk about things. Okay. And again, I appreciate that this song is trying to grapple with an issue and a struggle. That being said, the pocket knife metaphor being emblematic for his way of life feels like a really limp idea to hang all of this on. Like the whittling on a memory lines is the closest he comes to a successful rhetorical device when it comes to songwriting. He doesn't push it anywhere interesting, but fuck, this is something. And then, of course, he says he's gonna throw some Tupac on the mic, and then he just totally fucking loses me. And then moving into how all of this trauma reflects on his mother in a way that I kind of fundamentally don't understand. He's like framing the song as talking to his mother and then kind of switches to talking to his mother on the second verse, saying that he's not mad at her because he wasn't a very good kid. But by being vague in this song about what Walker did beyond have embarrassingly white guy rap taste, this song just has no impact. Is his throwaway line about not being able to call his dad and rhyming it with "don't be sad" in regards to his mom is just icing on the fucking cake. Like the tone and subject material of this is just totally elusive to me. The final minute of this is just lame country music autopilot that doesn't really meaningfully expand on anything. Like if the song's about childhood trauma, making you write country songs like the lyrics claim, I know not a damn thing about the trauma nor really the music it informs. Like how did it teach you, Walker? What lessons did it carry over? Why is the songwriting like it feels measurably sloppier on these first two songs than it does on even Country Stuff the album, which, for all of that album's faults, there were very few times where I'm like, this is incongruous with itself. Like, usually those songs were designed to be something and they kind of executed it. And Jen, this is the single most diabolical piece of revenge I think you have ever leveled at me because,
I really wasn't expecting how
oh,
completely of a non-starter this record was going to be.
Jen, here's the thing about that. I'm so sorry.
What happened?
After these first two songs,
Did
I
you
was
start
like,
fucking with this? Is
I
that
was
really
like,
what you're about to say to me? If you're going to look me in the eyes and tell me that you like this album,
I
I've
was
run out of
prepared.
options.
I was prepared to completely, like, I was gonna go nuclear at the rate that the first two songs were sending me on. I was like, this is so sloppily written. I don't even understand how this is possible. And now I have to come on to this show and talk about the fact that I don't really think I dislike this album very much.
I
I'm not, I'm
I
not,
want to really deconstruct where this is coming from. I
I,
really do.
and trust
Because I
me,
believe you.
that's
Because
the
here's the
thing.
thing. Here's
This
the
is
thing. Here's the
so
thing that's always
embarrassing.
Here's the thing that's always kept me at bay about Walker Hayes, and I said this in the review of Country Stuff, the album, and I'm going to say it again here, is that I ultimately admire his disposition, right? He
Yes,
is a guy who I believe him when he says, I love making music so much. It's let me support my family. I'm grateful for that. Even if I think he's bad at it or like a song is bad,
I agree.
I admire where he's coming from. And I've admired learning more about his life and the work that he's done and the oddball jobs that he took in the early days of his career to raise his profile that led to the miraculous success that country stuff brought him. There's interesting things going on there, and his songwriting could reflect that. The thing about Pocket Knife, the thing that makes that song such a non-starter for me is that, yeah, there's no specificity in that
Mm-mm.
first verse beyond the mention of the brother issue that makes me feel like he actually learned anything from these experiences that drove him to make the music that he made in the first place. Because if that's the claim, he's not properly supporting it with any evidence and reasoning, to use my
No,
most basic like English teacher framework that I can. The claim is not adequately supported on the song. But
it is not.
now this segment has turned into an interrogation of you by me because I have to know where you realized that this is what was happening to you. What was the moment where
Perfect,
it turned?
perfect opportunity. The third song, 17-year-old problems. Here's the thing. I'm just gonna lay all my cards out here. I think this is a really good song. I think this is lyrically focused, but it doesn't have tunnel vision. It's emotional. The tone of the instrumental matches the actual lyricism. The song conceit is both revealing and emotional about Walker's past and present, and reckoning with both at the same time. Like, I'm actually legitimately floored. The only thing that I don't like is the polished vocals, but like that's honestly kind of a drop in the bucket when it comes to the fact that he actually successfully executed a song conceit or idea. And I'm not just saying that I like this song because it has fulfilled some bare minimum requirement or something. Here's the thing. Why I don't come down negatively on this album is because you're right. It's like the reason you said that you appreciated his place is that this is the first time I've heard music from Walker Hayes where I'm like, oh, I really actually think that you put yourself into this, and it has varying levels of success, but like there is there is soul in this album. I hate to say it, but I think that there is genuine attempts to unearth something difficult on behalf of Walker Hayes, and I'm not saying that he does it successfully because I do not think this album is good, but I also cannot in good conscience say that I think that 80 to 85% of this is bad because there are enough moments on here where I was like, oh, you are actually being reflective. And I'm not saying that he is 100% successful and doesn't encounter stumbling blocks many, many times because he does. He fucks up multiple times. And unfortunately, I wanted to say that like, oh, the first two songs are like far and away the worst things about the album. And they are, but I wanted to be like, oh, but after that, the album really finds its stride and never falls off. There's a couple songs I think in the latter half which aren't amazing or anything, particularly one of them, which I think is just absolute garbage. But 17-year-old problems really got me in his corner. I was like, I heard that and I was like, this is successful by merit of the fact that there are instrumentally, there's not a lot going on. It
Yeah.
is very simple. And I understand I actually felt a little something because, longing for the actual earlier problems of your youth. I mean, fuck, I think about that shit all the time. I'm just like, man, I remember what it was like to be in high school and worry about fucking homework, and now I have to worry about paying my goddamn taxes. Like, I get it. And there's things that Walker brings up that I'm like, this is something that's worth losing sleep over. I get why this is something that is bothering you and why you're taking an effort to self-examine a little bit. And
I
so I
also
think this is
lean
really good.
I lean positive on this song as well, is the thing, is that I agree with you on this song in specific because Walker stumbles into doing this one thing very effectively, which is that he's so blunt and so awkward. Like 17-year-old problems is just kind of a weird thing to say,
Yes.
but you feel him genuinely trying to understand something about himself. Where I think the song fails for me is that I imagined the third verse just kind of let me down a little bit because aside from the genuinely like this moment knocked me off my feet. She used to pick me up from practice. Now she's picking me up from rehab. Like that's where I got it. But there's
Ouch.
no other moment of specificity where the song conceit fully comes together for me, where it's like, well, why are you reflecting on the 17-year-old problems? What's
Mhm.
actually driving this? What's going on in your present day that's making this worth writing? Because it seems like, and this is where I also get frustrated with this, it seems like Walker Hayes's recovery has genuinely gone very well.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, reflecting on the now she's picking me up from rehab, it feels just a tiny bit off because, like, I know that that was like a long time ago, and you've written a lot of other music since then that touches on this concept, and you've written stuff that touches on temptation that I actually do think is interesting as well. Like the song AA, despite all of
Yeah.
its hokey one-liners, does ultimately have a strong conceit behind it, which is like, I'm really just trying not to backslide into my addiction. As corny as that song communicates that message.
Yeah.
And I think that's where my hangups with even the moments that I do like on this album come from, is that I want to know what's going on today, right now, with
Hmm.
Walker Hayes, that's making this a unique time to reflect on the past. And I just feel like I'm coming up a little bit short on a lot of these moments. And I also just like, I can't stand so many of the production choices on this record. Like,
They're
I
mm,
can't get to a point where I can grade this on a curve because, oh well, it's a Walker Hayes album. It's going to sound like that. I don't have that in me. I don't have that grace.
and
I just don't.
I
If he
would
was making
freely
music that sounded better, like Briefcase on Country Stuff, the album, we wouldn't be talking about this on this show. We would
no,
be like genuinely reviewing
you're
it
right.
on Jams and Tea and trying to make something out of it. But so much of this music just sounds awful to me, and I can't, it's a complete failure to launch for me.
And I understand, and I think that is kind of how we split the difference here is that both how time kind of affects the way that you see Walker Hayes. I will admit that's not an obstacle that I, because of my lack of knowledge about Walker Hayes, not an obstacle I encountered, but certainly like if you are cognizant of Walker Hayes's timeline, I could certainly see why that is something that would impede your enjoyment. I totally get that. And I guess the reality is that I guess that I can kind of grade him on a curve because I will admit there are plenty of production choices on this album that hold it back for me. And that is at the end of the day why I can't like part of me really wanted to embrace my devil's advocate status with this album and just be like, no, this is good actually. But like with all of these production choices, I can't in good conscience call this album good. But there are enough moments on here where Walker Hayes defied my expectations in a way that I found delightfully refreshing because it's taking those moments that were revealing and interesting on Country Stuff the album, the seldom few moments that that album actually had, and does kind of construct an album out of them because this is a record that is very clearly a, it's no the weight of these wings, but it is a very I have to look at myself post divorce and try and make sense of the mess that I'm in. And it goes ahead of stuff like Morgan Wallen out the Morgan Wallen album you made me listen to last year, primarily because, well, despite the fact that it is 17 songs, it is only 50 minutes long, which yeah, is encounters its own issues with some of these songs feeling a bit structurally kind of insubstantial at times. But if you're going to make albums that sound like this, just don't make me listen to them for more than an hour. I'm gracious to the fact that these are songs that have a decent pace to them. I was like, the problem with that Morgan Wallen album is that no matter how long the songs were, I would be sitting there and like even a 4 minute long song started to feel like fucking Stairway to Heaven. Whereas this is something that constantly just like before you can even really register that you don't like a production choice, the song will probably just shift gears or end. And that ends up being kind of a benefit because this album does not pick one particular lane to constantly be in and thus bore me to tears. I mean, I kind of feel slightly similarly about the song after 17-Year-Old Problems, 1, 2, which nowhere near as good as 17-Year-Old Problems, if you ask me, but I don't mind this. Like, Walker is writing with a level of self-awareness that's kind of, I mean, borderline kind of shocking on here occasionally. He's very much, I think what will really, really make or break this experience for you is listening to this, how willing to buy into the fact that Walker Hayes is portraying himself as a fucked up loser if you are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in how he is just, laying himself out there and making himself out to be a real piece of shit, maybe he does not possess that level of self-awareness, and I am giving him way more grace than he deserves. But on here, he is kind of making the point that he is a bit of a loser who is poking fun at himself to the point of even making himself into a complete joke. It's way more basic and way less frank than something like 17-year-old problems. But I would say that I still think that it actually works. And the momentum of this is a little bit derailed by the fact that with type the fucking trap hi-hats that
The middle
signal
leg of this album is a torture chamber for me. So
starting where.
let me just start here. Well, yeah, type is where it really begins because
These are
yeah,
some
one,
very
two,
middling songs for me, so
I
please.
feel similarly about one, two, where it's like, okay, I see where we're going with this in terms of the album being able to communicate its central concept about like, yeah, I'm like you. I could also buy into Walker Hayes genuinely trying to examine his failures and his own shortcomings. But then you get to the middle stretch of this album where you have Type, Fine as You, Mother, Next Wife, which Next Wife is maybe the least prominent example of this, but all songs where he just completely uncritically reverts back to his horn dog, aw shucks status, where type, God, I love you so much, I'd buy an Uber. Please stop. And just, yeah, type starts with these trap hi-hats over a banjo. I wish I could tell you what this chorus reminded me of. Like, I'm thinking there's another song that I know sounds exactly like this that I just can't remember. And then, damn hun, wish you had a Samsung is
The Samsung line and maybe the most eye roll worthy lyric on the entire record with Siga regrets.
and then
Brother, come
fine
on,
as
man. I'm
you.
trying to I'm trying to be a devil's advocate for you and you're making it so difficult.
I think what's ultimately gonna be your score for this album is based on how effectively you feel like you can play devil's advocate for it to get one over on me. Like, I think that's really
Yes.
what we're measuring here at this point, because I ultimately come down into agreeing with you that there's more here than there is on country stuff. Whereas on
Yes. A
New
lot.
Money is a complete non-starter of just like trash after trash after trash after trash in a way that this isn't. But in a way, I'm more frustrated by this because of
I
the
get it.
promises and the shortcomings that follow those promises.
No,
And
I it's
um
it's whether or not you want to appreciate something for trying or recognize it for failing. Because that's the ultimate kind of dichotomy here. Because like with type specifically, like I this is something that I like kind of want to hate. Because again, the Samsung line, knee-jerk reaction to that is just like, oh God, please stop with the brands. Please don't mention brands in country songs. This is never going to be a good thing. It is always going to make you sound like a sellout. Like anytime I hear a country song and you talk about fucking a brand of beer, a brand of car, a fucking brand of Carhartt, I don't fucking know. Anytime you mention this shit, it sounds lame and dumb. And again, Sigur regrets all-timer awful lyric, but like it's a functional enough song and like all of the stupid broy moments on here, I think Walker leans enough into the dumb broy horn dog stuff being a reflection of the fact that he's a broken person
Let
less
me
than
advocate for
before.
one moment on this album where I feel like he actually completely succeeds in this, which is Guys Like Me. One of my
Yes, yeah,
favorite
yeah.
songs on the album in terms of its lyricism, strictly based on how ready and willing Walker portrays himself as being snarky and being bitter
Yeah.
about this concept because the whole song is about, well, you should really be thanking me that you're getting married to this great guy because I'm the one who, and it's a really funny song concept because
It's
he
an
really does lean
inversion.
into being a dick who for some reason got invited to this wedding.
He basically had a song conceit like this on Country Stuff the album, but it was written with no self-awareness. And this, on the other hand, does flip it on its head because it's like, again, with guys like me, if you're somebody who is not willing to give Walker Hayes the benefit of the doubt, then this song is going to be fucking unbearable to you. You're going to be like, what the fuck? This self-impressed jackass? I don't want, like, fuck this guy. But on the other hand, like, it is so cartoonish. It is so ridiculous in how it portrays him. I really have no choice but to take it as a joke because, I mean, like, again, this is a song that feels like it is attempting to portray a pathetic man futilely grasping at straws as to justify why his wife left him for somebody better, in his own words. He literally says it in the song that he is
Yeah.
better than him.
And I could give a moment like that much more credit if it wasn't preceded by Fine as You and Mother. An absolute 1-2 punch of just being horrible to your ex by
Hmm.
one, claiming possession over some important part of this person's life, regardless of like their willingness to be a recipient of
Yeah.
that regard. Like a Fine as You is basically a sequel or a reinterpretation of a song off of Country Stuff the album, I Hope You Miss Me, which is all about,
Yeah.
somebody leaving town to chase their dreams in LA, but I'm gonna keep telling everybody, I'm gonna tell the whole town we had a thing, is how Fine as You ends. And it's like, it's this, you think you're doing something nice by wishing something well when what you're really doing is rubbing in this portion of ownership, this idea of ownership over their time or their body or their experience in a way that's really gross to me, really doesn't resonate with me at all.
I get it with As Fine as You, primarily because it feels like it's leaning into the idea of him being a loser so hard that it feels like an excuse to indulge in bad behavior.
And
Like
the tone, but the tone of the song is so bright and
it's
optimistic
because it's
about
like a
this, where it's like,
stadium country big song, and like
it's
that
like
doesn't
he's reached the
work.
acceptance stage of the 5 stages of grief, where he's like, ah, yes, by figuring out how I can still claim ownership over you, I've gotten over the fact that we broke up and you ran away.
Which would be good if he realized that was what he's saying, but on here, this is one of those instances where it's like the kernel of a sentiment that I could get behind is within this, but with the production and everything, it just ends up being a bit like it's functional in a way that some of the like the first two songs on this are not, but it is also just like it's just clumsy. And honestly, Mother is clumsy and sonically kind of hideous. Like, here's the thing about Mother is that, like, reckoning with divorce and your ex moving on and genuinely being better without you is personal growth that I did not think Walker Hayes was capable of. Does he put it well? No, not really, but I genuinely admire the attempt to recognize that you were the problem because you weren't part of the solution, and having to behave like that dissonance doesn't bother you is probably awful if you have to, like, the one thing I do really appreciate about this song is the fact that, like, reckoning with the fact that you are divorced with someone who you have to still like see on a daily basis and like live in the same town as, it's like that
Well,
needs
dude,
to
you
be
know what
something
this
I hear more
is?
about. I need
Do
to
you
hear
know what
more
this
about that.
is?
What?
You've heard more about it before. You've heard this exact song before. It's hard to forget. It's the Sam Hunt song. It's the same goddamn idea behind it. With, I'll give Walker credit for this,
It's
a
better
little
than
bit
that,
more,
but
yeah, a little bit more reservedness and self-awareness towards the thorniness of the relationship.
yeah.
But the sound of it, and here's the thing, both Fine as You and Mother have this problem where the sound of it, it doesn't sound like that's the tone by which he's approaching the
No,
themes of the song.
totally incongruous. It does not match at all. And like I get that that is a popular thing to do in music. I mean, like we have been doing the whole music that sounds bright and happy, but is actually makes you want to kill yourself as far back as the fucking Beach Boys. but that dissonance has to accomplish something. You have to feel a certain way because of it. Because, like, you listen to a song like God Only Knows, and it sounds like a love song, and then you read the lyrics, and you're like, oh, this is actually kind of fucked up and sad. Never mind. But you still feel the positive sentiment within the song, and it echoing into the music does make sense in your brain. Whereas here, I just think that the clashing tones are because it's wrong. It's not intentionally anything. I just
Yeah,
don't think it's well
they just
designed.
took the wrong approach.
Mm-mm. And again, this is a moment where the album threatened to lose me. And then Song for My Son, which the rhyme of sad stuff and dad stuff aside, oh, Faye, yeah, this is okay too. Like, Walker worries all his weaknesses will be passed down to his son and has legit anxiety about the fact that his kid seems legitimately kind of precocious and perceptive and can already identify chinks in his armor, so to speak. And the Kane Brown feature on here is really, really kind of alarmingly brief, but effective. He makes use of his time well enough. And honestly, they have a really decent vocal blend on here. It's like one of the few times where I'm like, wow, Walker Hayes has a really good voice when you don't slop it in digital good.
Yeah, they sound good together, but here's the thing about duets. This is the only duet on this album. This song did not need to be a duet.
No, not really.
I need that second verse that gets more into the particulars of what Walker feels about this for this
Yeah,
song to really
yeah, I get
work
it.
for me. And the briefness by which Kane Brown like goes about the concept himself just makes it feel like I'm missing something.
This song needs an extra minute to fully be like legitimately worth appreciating. There needs to be a little bit more substance here. Like, it gets the job done, but only just really.
That's the that's the thing about so many of the songs in this album is that so many of them for me just fail to do what they set out to do or seem like they don't fit the concept of the album at all because they're so misguided like Mother and Fine as You.
Yeah.
I think ultimately the album fails at what it's trying to be, even if I think it has its bright spots, whereas like Country Stuff, the album did not fail at what it was trying to be. But
That is true.
I think
That
this is
you're
actively failing at what it's trying to be because of so many misguided decisions. And so I'm maybe not as like virulently angry about the content of this album as I am about Country Stuff, but I'm more disappointed in this album. And I don't know what's worse. And I think both are interesting to explore in this regard.
honestly, I kind of feel like a song like 100 Pencils is a perfect microcosm for that exact dilemma because this is like the way I would describe this song is not successful, but very interesting in that I'm not like, firstly, I'm not going to hold it against them because this is a time-honored country music songwriting tradition at this point, but invoking people like George Strait and Merle Haggard, you're just making me want to listen to George Strait and Merle Haggard.
And then you're gonna say you roll my tide.
Come on, man. Like, earlier when he talks about his mom and he mentions Mama Tried, and I'm just like, dude, like, not in this fucking household, you do not. But
The
like,
little whoever did the little impression of Tupac in the back of the mix on that song, I hope they're okay.
I hope they got paid well, I guess. But I will say this is a song conceit being that you are kind of fundamentally untalented. You know, like, this is a song about recognizing your limitations in a sort of rolling a boulder up a hill situation. But like, being cognizant and to some extent kind of humble and merely highlighting that it's your effort that makes you stand out is not a terrible idea. But unfortunately, it's also self-defeating because the song can't quite fully be good because if the point is that you put in a lot of effort, usually it's supposed to amount to more than this. But I mean, like, A for effort, I unfortunately really like the chorus melody of this song. It's one of the few times where the actual musicality of this album actually is like, oh, okay, I can get it. Like, there is enough moments on here, like, for as many bright spots as I mean, well, I mean, there weren't many bright spots on Country Stuff the album, but there were moments where I was like, recognizing that some of the songwriting was functional or revealing on some level, but I can't really remember many moments where it musically like gripped me at all beyond again being strictly functional. There is enough moments on here where I'm like, "Oh, I like this idea or this idea." It's very much isolating specific things and not whole songs, but enough to at least remember and recognize things that I like. And a song like Next Wife, for instance, if you aren't willing to give Walker Hayes the benefit of the doubt, this song is probably completely fucking unlistenable. As someone who is trying to go with this experience, I just kind of think this song is really fucking funny. Like, some unforgivably tacky lyric choices aside, they do work in the context of the fact that this is a time-honored tradition of a country song that makes fun of itself. Like, I've heard this type of country song be done by many more talented and better people before, and Walker is not as good as they are at doing it. That said, I think he is mildly successful. Like a song about imagining being divorced for a third time and feeling bad for whoever came into your life, just like if they had seen your ex at Walmart. That's fucking funny. Like, I'm sorry, that's just so stupid. I have to admire the fact that it's like this kind of feels like a successful version of the sentiment in Fancy Like, where you're trying to do the silly country song that paint like the John Prine in spite of ourselves type of thing that he's clearly trying to aim for. And this is no in spite of ourselves, obviously, but it is a song that recognizes that it is stupid and silly and it's this made up scenario, and I get it. I understand it. In fact, I would say that it's far from the best song on the album, but it might be the most successful one.
Yeah, I softened on this after initially listening to it because I was like, okay, I have to stop thinking, like I have to stop assuming that Walker Hayes is just like a raging misogynist. Like I need
Like,
to, even
he's
if he
definitely a
is,
little bit of a misogynist, don't get me
yeah, he's
wrong.
definitely a little bit of a misogynist,
Like, I
but
don't
like,
want that to take away from your very valid read.
but the thing about, uh, it just sounds like garbage and I can't do it. I can't do it.
Look, Jen, I will get on board with you and we can meet in a moment of unity. Because fuck, Bible sales are up. This song
This
sucks.
is,
Song
yeah.
sucks.
This song
Fuck
sucks.
this song.
We got our own version of the what's the one? Come Back as a Redneck doesn't feel like a great comparison, but
It's
something
close.
toward that where it's like so Bible sales are up. I have a funny story about this.
Please.
It's based on a book.
Is it the Bible?
No.
Oh.
It's a Christian self-help book called The Good News at Rock Bottom. That
I'm hearing a lot of alarms go off right now.
it's very much like, Isaiah 54 meets power of positive thinking.
Yeah, okay. That's exactly what I imagined it would be. Some shit that Joel Osteen would hawk on a fucking infomercial. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But it might not have been hawked by Joel Osteen, but it rings, and I can't help but think that so many of the things that he says on this song are an extension of this book's politics, where it's like, well, it's like when Gabriel shows up at the end of Constantine and is like, if I just keep making the world worse, people will turn to God. And isn't that
Yeah.
great?
And like there could be something really interesting to unearth there, and I don't feel like that would be a difficult ask either, because like, okay, I'll give this credit for being better than I assumed it would be based on the title. It's not as rock bottom as I assumed it would be. But this just doesn't fundamentally work. Like, the particulars are too vague in their attempt to capture the moment, and there's no desire to grapple with the complexities of people being driven to religion in times of stress or strife. Like, Walker dances around what he's trying to say with this, like, way too much, and is just way too incurious to examine why this seems to be comforting to him, which I think the song is implying that that is the
That's
case.
definitely where he's going, is that
And
he finds a little bit of comfort in the idea that like people are coming back to Jesus, basically, which I don't know, man. My
I,
politics are clearly different than his. This does not soothe me. And so
no,
this being your emotional conclusion, like I can see why you feel that way, and I can, as a critic, attempt to understand how you construct that as a theme, but Walker kind of fails to construct it as a theme beyond my
no, you're right.
distaste with the concept itself.
Like I just don't pick up on like there needs to be a little irony in this song, or there needs to be some self-examination. Like it's a song that feels like thematically it stops mid-sentence and like what is this actually
Why
representative
is the
of?
American dream more like a nightmare? Like what, can you tell me what is actually happening, Walker,
Yeah,
that
like
you think is making the American dream a nightmare? Because, I mean, lately that's felt like a multiple choice question, but there are some correct answers.
and like the idea of separating lyrically Christianity and the Bible from the American dream, it's like, buddy, I don't think you understand the polemics that are at play, and I also don't think that this is that complicated. Like, I don't think that you don't need to be smart to make a good version of this song, is what I'm saying. It's like this does not like I'm not
You
asking
don't need to do
Walker
the J.
Hayes
Cole taxes
I'm
thing to
not
make this
asking
song
Walker
work.
Hayes to meet my leftist ass midway through here. I'm asking Walker Hayes to ask a question as to why he thinks this in the first place and like what that actually means. Just because we live in a time where I feel like doing this uncritically brushes on being either like at worst irresponsible and at best deeply incurious and kind of ineffectual.
And it's just, I really do think he is an ideological centrist because I
Oh, for
can't,
sure.
did you listen to that? What's
Yeah.
the one
The
off
the
the
one
New
you sent
Money?
me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I sent you Good With Me because I knew that having that song might help you with some of the conclusions here, and it's definitely helped me. And there's just so many moments on that song where Walker Hayes is just so clearly doing ideological centrism. There's literally a moment where he goes, so and so thinks we should close the border. Carlos disagrees. I'm like, I
Because
wonder
his
why a
opinion
dude,
is only relevant if he's Mexican.
not to be like that, but I wonder why a dude named Carlos might disagree with that sentiment.
But naturally, we are not interested in mining this particular topic with any amount of depth. And again, I do not expect Walker Hayes to have the same politics as me, but if you do not dig into this in a substantial way, do not dig into it at all because it is going to undermine whatever you are talking about because you do not you're out of your depth here. And thankfully, while this is a moment where I was just like, okay, I think he might be losing me again, I will admit, I think that the second best song on this album is "I Still Do." I against my better judgment, I think this song is actually quite sweet. It's a
The
love
the
song.
unelegance of his pen, similarly to 17-year-old problems, works in his favor when he's able to properly channel it, including on a song like this.
Yes.
I completely see where you're coming from.
It's a love song that essentially is him renewing his vows with the added context of the life that you live and the troubles that you never knew that you would really face in a neat little concept. It's like Walker doesn't ever really shit the bed here lyrically like he does on most of these songs. Like the line about two broke kids just repeating what the preacher told them to, ironically says more than the entire last song did with one fucking lyric. Like I actually legitimately like how stripped back the production is on here. It is polished, but it is gentle. It is tasteful. Like this is a thing where Walker recognized his limitations and built a good song out of those limitations, and I respect that. It is an authentic moment, and I think that like if he leaned into this aspect of his songwriting, if he played to emotions but also, retained a little bit of that authenticity, he would be able to construct a genuinely decent album. It's just that this is kind of an exception and not the rule, you know?
I really wish I knew more of Walker Hayes' opinions on organized religion. And I never thought I would say that after listening to a song like
But
Craig, but this album does make me ask questions about what
it,
Walker Hayes actually
well,
believes with regard to organized religion. Because you have shit like the Dad beat me with the belt,
yep,
preacher beat us with a Bible, which is an
yes.
interesting double entendre that has
And
multiple possible interpretations there. And he straight up says that he hates going to church at one point
yes,
on this
like
album. And
it
I
is.
want that person to come out and talk to me more about why he feels that way. But like, and that's why Bible sales are up is such a non-starter because I'm like, you said all this stuff. I don't understand why this makes you feel better.
Like it's incongruous with what you told me on this album. Like clearly going through these awful things has made Walker Hayes a more introspective person. I feel like that's undeniable if you actually listen to the content of the album. It's just that he's not really interested in unearthing more of that. Like he's made progress clearly, but not enough to get him to an entirely different place. And we already mentioned guys like me, and then we have mayonnaise. And I'm
I
not
mean,
gonna
the
lie to
song,
you,
I will say this because I didn't say it before. Guys Like Me is not exempt from my declaration of even the songs that I will readily call good to me just sound like absolute crap.
it's not
There's
a
so
good
much
song.
like the best, the best you're gonna get on this record is like 2016 Stomp Clap tribute stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
In
it's
terms of
not
like
far away
in
from
terms
that.
of like things that he's messing around with that are constructed in a way that makes sense and sounds like what it's supposed to sound like. But let's talk
And
about mayonnaise.
mayonnaise, I'm not gonna lie, I have one note for this song, and it is the two words dog what? What is happening on here? Why is this song on this album?
I don't know because aside from it being just completely embarrassing and cringy, like it doesn't belong here. Like this has not been an album about I don't think this is a divorce album. I don't think Walker Hayes and his marriage are in trouble at all. I don't know where the next
No.
wife stuff is coming from, but as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, let me just fuck it. I'm gonna Google it real quick.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Give me a second.
Next Wife feels reflective, not predictive, to me anyway.
Yeah, so he is still married.
Okay, okay,
Because, yeah, they've been married since 2018. It seems like they had a scenario where they were on the rocks for a little bit that might have inspired some elements of this album.
okay.
But since like 2023, they have been, because she's also a musician, have been like seemingly happily married and like doing appearances together and whatnot, doing the
Okay.
celebrity stuff that you have to do. But the thing is that like Mayonnaise is such a horn dog of a song that I really don't know why it's on an album like this. It doesn't fit with anything else that the album has been trying
No.
to do. And you can do this in a like, I can't believe I'm about to compare this album to this, but you could do a song like this in a yeah, starting confessions kind of way if the song conceit was slightly different and you sequenced it properly. Like there's room for this. But in the state that it's in, I just don't think there's room for this song on this album, and I think its
No.
inclusion makes it significantly worse.
Like frankly, you just should have called the album 16 Problems and then cut this song off of it because it's dead weight. Like it's dead weight in a
I
way.
think that's the real problem is that he got the idea to name. I'm not saying that this is actually true, but if he got the idea to name it 17 Problems, those 17 songs have to come from somewhere, including a couple that might have been cut if he had committed himself to a little bit more focus.
This is not just like, oh, I don't think the song is good, so don't leave it on the album. Like, no, the other bad songs on this album, you punch those songs up and they have a place here. You punch Mayonnaise up, I'm still like, get it off the album. I don't know what it's doing here. Like, it's lame. It's kind of it's bizarrely visiting ideas that are in other songs and like, but it's only things that are part of other songs. It's like jokes and ideas that are in other songs that he's making this entire thing out of. And at this point on the album, it just feels completely. It's a song that feels like it makes itself irrelevant. I don't really understand what the point of including it even is. But after that, you have Jesus, My Dad, and Johnny Cash, which, frankly, this is not a bad song, really, but my problem here is really that it's just kind of unmined potential. You have a country song about you going to the afterlife and talking to, again, your dad and Johnny Cash, and there's just not much that comes from it. There's not like a lesson or a takeaway to really move from this song. Like, I feel like other, more established country songwriters would have so much more to say with the potential of what this song could be. And Walker is just kind of like, ah, yeah, I went and drank a beer with Johnny Cash. And it's like, oh,
And then,
that's lovely, I guess.
Bridgerton's cover of Ring of Fire plays over this, and
What was that all about? What was with that choice exactly?
it's such a strange choice of instrumentation. It doesn't
I
sound like anything
really
else on the album. And
confusing.
like I said, it sounds like Bridgerton, you
It
know?
no, there's like a Baroque quality to it, and you're like, why is this on this weird country pop bro country album again? Like, and that's the thing. I'm like, you know, I'm like Spectrum Pulse in the sense that like even bad, tacky subgenres of country like bro country can be like done well. I don't think the sound of this album does that well. It's too inconsistent to be able to do that. It has, again, its best moments are when it sheds those things entirely rather than half-assedly incorporating them. And, I don't really have much to say about the two final songs just because I think they're either like Wednesday is cute, don't mind it, nice piano flourish, don't really
It
have much to
actually
say.
sounds good. Like this is
Yeah,
the one
it's
song that I will actually compliment as being the instrumentation and the mixing and the mastering is actually really there and sounds
yeah,
good.
it
There's
is.
really good accordion playing on this
Yeah,
song. Like
that
it
part's real nice. I
it's a
I
very like,
appreciate that.
sitting back in the yacht, cruising down the river, listening to a nice little tune.
Very solid closer.
It's a nice way to end the record, but then again, Jesus, My Dad, and Johnny Cash would have been just as good of a closer. But again, we have to have 17 songs on this thing. It's got
You
to come from
need to come
somewhere.
to a more definitive conclusion on that song. Like there's a bit too much fat here, and it's like that's kind of my general thoughts on the album is that it's, you buy a slab of beef and you want it to be lean, and this is a slab of beef with a bit too much fat on it, and you gotta cut it down a little bit to get it to its essential components, and then maybe cook it up. But this is like I guess at the end of the day, your mileage out of this album will be, do you appreciate Walker Hayes for succeeding or do you appreciate him for trying? Because if you appreciate him for succeeding, you're going to get nothing out of this. If you appreciate him for trying, you might find a couple moments of legitimate worth. Like the thing with Country Stuff, the album, and the reason that like I was the one who I think talked about it when we talked about our worst albums of the year is that it just felt reflective of very little. Without moments like Briefcase, I didn't even feel like there was a person at the heart of that album. All of the mistakes made on this album are just mistakes a guy would make. I understand why some of the decisions on here are the way they are, even if I don't agree with them. There are moments where, again, they're moments that are truly unconscionable, like truly. But I also just can't say I think that the album is bad. I appreciate the I feel like there has been substantial progress in between this and Country Stuff, and I I guess as somebody who appreciates the journey you can see an artist go on, I've seen Walker Hayes become a more interesting artist, and I feel like that's moderately valuable. I mean, like, honest to God, it's a little bit inspiring because it's like you listen to something like Fancy Like and you're like, nothing worthwhile's ever gonna come out of this dude. And then I listen to this and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I was a bit too quick to judge. He has potential. I think that he can write a good song when his priorities are straight and when he's actually putting effort into the conceits, when he's actually putting effort into all this. It's smeared in a lot of really unremarkable production and production that frankly goes against what it is sometimes. But again, by the time this album was finished, I can't say I walked away with a dislike of it. I, I, I hate
This is
you.
insane.
God damn it.
You don't get to walk away with this saying that you hate me.
You made me
You
admit that I
won!
liked a Walker Hayes album.
You won!
In what way?
You won, but at what cost?
At
Having to admit on the
what
mic that you
cost?
were having to admit on the mic that you're now invested in the
One of
musicianship
the
of
one
Walker
of the
Hayes.
only things I have is that I have decently niche hipstery music opinions, and now I don't even have that.
Well, that's the fucking thing, though, is that you do. You're the one asshole of all of our friends who now is like, yeah, I'll listen to that next Walker Hayes album. That last one had some potential.
Yeah, I feel wonderful about going to bat for the album with a 1.6 on Rate Your Music. I feel so good about it.
Oh my God.
Sucks.
How did this happen? I'm baffled. I'm not Here's the thing, is I'm not baffled necessarily.
Jen's trick. Joker's trick.
Because I, like you, like as I sit and have this conversation with you, and even as I listened to this album multiple times this week, I became more disappointed with it than I was repulsed by it. But for me,
I get it.
I could never become not repulsed enough. And I don't know, maybe you can. Maybe you can continue along this path, but he needs to fire Shane McAnally and get somebody
Oh,
else in the booth
please.
to try something else because I don't like listening to stuff that sounds like this. And no amount of improvement in his songwriting is going to convince me that this is worth investing my time in
No,
completely.
you're completely right. He needs to like Walker, like here's the thing is that before this album, if you asked me if there was ever a scenario in which Walker Hayes would be able to make a good record, I would tell you no. After hearing this, get him a decent producer and hire one of those behind the scenes songwriter guys who's done stuff for bigger people. I mean, fuck, get Rustin Kelly. He wrote for people who were of comparable stature to Walker Hayes before he did his solo shit. Do something with that. I don't know. There's
I don't think I would
something.
believe Rustin Kelly's words coming out of that man's mouth though.
I,
I don't think
I
we've talked at
probably wouldn't
all
either.
we haven't talked at all about Walker as an actual performer in this review, which we
It's
did to a
because
substantial amount in the country stuff review. But there's still way too many moments on this album where I'm just like, I can't listen to a dude sing a song this way. The fucking A and
I,
the AAVE stuff and Adderall together and just
mm,
like he's just he can't do the R&B stuff. I don't know why he keeps trying to do R&B songs.
I
I
think
don't
maybe
know
I'm
why he keeps trying to do
slightly
it.
more tolerant of this just because there's a lot less like, we are thankfully a little bit divorced from the era of Florida Georgia Line's dominance in the world of bro country and like I don't
Well,
have
they've
to
broken up
hear.
now. They're
Oh,
officially
really?
done. Yeah.
Interesting.
They broke
Well,
up a couple years ago because I think, voted differently in the presidential election. I'm not fucking kidding.
I mean, whoever did vote differently, good for you. I guess I
Uh,
didn't really like considering the
the one whose voice you can actually hear on those records voted for Joe Biden.
well, that's hysterical when you consider that This Is How We Roll was the theme song of Sean Hannity's radio show for like 8 straight fucking years, which, you live in Kentucky and you're probably gonna hear a lot of that. So the fact that I do not have to listen to that as much as I used to definitely plays a role here because like no, I don't like the way a lot of this sounds or the way Walker Hayes performs, but I'm also just a little bit I'm able to tolerate it more just because I don't have to hear it every time I walk into fucking Target or well, I mean not that I walk into Target these days, but you know what I fucking mean.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
What happens here?
truthfully, I was only worried about trying to defend my ass. I didn't really think this far ahead.
I mean,
Uh
it's your call. That's how the show works. You don't have to, you can do the goosebumps thing and just tell me I'm wrong. But
Fuck it. I'm
Let me
not
let
I'm
me
not
raise.
I'm not gonna do I'm
No,
not
no,
gonna
no.
do a 1 foot in, 1 foot out. If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna commit to it. I can't give this a negative rating. I won't lie. I'll stand 10 toes down on it. Fuck it.
How did this even get
Ah!
there? The funny thing is that both of us are upset by this.
Nobody wins. Literally nobody wins in this scenario. Everybody's fucked.
Punished Jen continues to be punished. I really thought I had something here.
And if this is what you get from Ascension, is Ascension worth the cost? Because it doesn't feel like it. I think the only way to deal with this, we got to put ourselves through some pain. We got to put ourselves through some torment, Jen.
What do you think I was trying to do?
I was trying to segue into talking about Silent Hill, but
What do you think I was trying to do? Huh? What do you think this was about? I said in the last episode that this was about punishment, and now it's just been turned around on me, points wise, anyway.
well,
All you care about is that dead wife of yours.
I
Can't
shouldn't
get
be laughing
anything
at that.
over
I
on you
shouldn't
because
be
you're
laughing at
too
that.
can't get anything over on you because you're too busy thinking about James Sunderland's dead fucking wife.
I mean, it's true. I am on some level always thinking about James Sunderland's dead wife. So, my recommendation to Jen was Silent Hill 2, and I feel very little need to presage anyone with the history of Silent Hill 2. We know Silent Hill 2 is commonly cited as one of the landmark games for games as an artistic narrative medium. Like, if you ask people in a certain age demographic, if you ask people age 35 to 45 years old who are big gamers at the time what their favorite game is, Silent Hill 2 is going to be one of the most commonly held aloft answers. It's one of those things that, like, especially in the circles that we run in the media that we consume, and the type of people we listen to, Silent Hill 2 is put on the same level for games that Citizen Kane is put on for films. And I use that pithy comparison not to be all like, oh, The Last of Us is the fucking Citizen Kane of gaming. No, I say that because I legitimately mean this narrative development is completely irreplicable in this medium. And I feel like it basically turned the tide as to whether or not we consider narrative gaming stuff to be artistic in nature. And really, it's mainly because this thing is entrenched in things we love that span from, horror movies like Jacob's Ladder to the works of David Lynch to inspiring a ton of shit. And now we are currently living in a weird Silent Hill renaissance where the Silent Hill 2 remake was good and everyone liked it and it sold well. And then a new Silent Hill game called Silent Hill F came out and that was really good too. And everybody really liked that. We've got another one coming on the horizon. We have a new Silent Hill 2 movie that we're just not going to talk about right now because it's, that's over there. That's Christoph Gahn's fault, not Konami's. But here we have an experience that I know for a fact you have absorbed a lot of by proxy. I know you know a lot about this game before experiencing it because it's hard not to know a lot about it. So I guess in keeping with the spirit of a lot of recommendations of this show, I kind of wanted to see, despite knowing a lot about this, we are big fans of, the journey, not the destination mentality. So despite knowing what you knew about it, the experience of it, how did this play to you, however you want to presage this? And then I think it's best that after you set the tone here, we talk specifically about the opening hour of Silent Hill 2.
Yeah. Okay. So I knew a lot about Silent Hill 2. I knew basically everything about the plot. I knew the one sentence Reddit explanation of the thematic significance of the Pyramid Head and
Wife
we
dead. Kill wife.
wife gone.
Wife gone. Wife.
Regret. That is the plot of Silent Hill
Yes,
2.
it is.
I just need a second. I've been completely winded by this last segment, and
Oh
now you're
no.
asking me to explain my experience with this game. I'm still not
Oh,
even fully over the past hour of our conversation.
no, I get it. I get it.
But, persisting through the exhaustion is gonna, be thematically appropriate.
Yeah, it's true.
My experience with Silent Hill 2 is that I'm not very heavily experienced with the survival horror genre, which I talked
Hmm.
about when we did Luigi's Mansion, which I straight up struggled to finish just because the control scheme was so different and the method of engagement and the progression systems were so different than anything that I was ever used to before. Because like I've never touched Resident Evil, never touched Silent Hill, never touched anything like it. And I think this is going to sound strange.
Probably fitting.
I played this game on easy, which I think was a mistake, but I'm glad I did it because I didn't want to get frustrated with my not being well worn with these kinds of games before. I
I
want to
get
give
it.
a huge shout out to I used the oldest Silent Hill fan site, Silent Hill Memories, has a very well written walkthrough of this
Yeah.
game that I used the whole time, which,
Yeah.
well, not the whole, there'll be points where I'm like, oh yeah, I think I know what to do next, so I'll go do the
And
next little
for
thing.
those listening, I advised Jen to do this with a walkthrough purely to get the best experience because I kind of think, and I'm not trying to jump the gun here or anything, but I kind of think that Silent Hill 2 is a game best experienced on your second playthrough of it when you kind of have a good idea of generally where to go and what to do and how the puzzles in the game work. Because if you again, if you're a Silent Hill newbie and you're just being tossed into this, the older game design can frustrate in ways that I just think are totally antithetical to the experience. So I was just like, just use a guide. Don't worry about that. So if you're gonna get on Jen's ass for that, get on my ass first.
And I genuinely want to recommend do what I did if you're playing this
Yeah, I
game for the
agree.
first time, because the walkthrough on Silent Hill Memories will give you a lot of hints as to the nuances of the game without ever explicitly spoiling the plot or stating why things are important.
Right.
It's written often very cryptically in a way
Hmm.
that drew me into the walkthrough just as much as it did to the game, where like I was interested in seeing what the writer was doing by describing certain things the way that they were describing them. It was a very interesting experience
Online
of
game
playing this
walkthroughs are a
game.
lost art, man.
It's a style of writing. Like
Hmm.
we take it for granted because so much of the way that that's proliferated today is like here's how to get X in Breath of the Wild, and then it's three fucking paragraphs about what Breath of the Wild is as a game, and then it tells you like what a shrine is, and then here's how to find the shrine. And it's all so disconnected because of search term optimization.
Oh yeah.
That's what's really busted the walkthrough as an art form is that like search engine optimization has made the way that those kinds of things are written completely shift. So it's been
Hmm.
interesting to read something that is meant to be a companion to actively playing the game as opposed to just being like a long answer to a Google search.
Yeah, a
So
list.
all of that is to say, I knew pretty much everything about the story of Silent Hill 2. I knew about some of the endings. I had an idea about some of the game's larger themes and its thematic moments. And I knew, like, I had seen gameplay footage before of, like, this is an old game. There are Watch Mojo videos about this that are older than people who could be watching this video right now that like, used Silent Hill 2 and talked about Silent Hill 2. And so I've seen, like, footage
That
of
sentence did so much damage to me.
I've seen like footage of the game that is a decade old. So like I'm familiar
Oh
with
yeah.
some of the inner workings of Silent Hill 2, but nothing compares to actually trying to do it. And that's
Hmm.
the thing that makes games different. And we talked about this before, is that the experience of playing drives the themes of the game forward. There is this thing called Ludo narrative that, if you don't know, I'm
Hey,
gonna explain
this
it
gives
to
us an
you.
opportunity. Instead of talking ludonarrative dissonance, we can talk about ludonarrative resonance.
Yeah. And like I've been reading. is I'm working on a project about my experience playing TTRPGs, and I actually think I came across this interesting concept called the RPG self, where it's basically an intersection of three states of mind, where it's the unconscious that's always present, the consciousness of the player, and the consciousness of the character that you are embodying that has the potential to bleed into the conscious of yourself as the player.
Yeah.
And then there's an interesting thing that happens specifically with Silent Hill 2, which is that this game is designed in a way that the story that it's going to tell is in reaction to player behavior
Yeah.
because so many of the potential outcomes are based on choices that the player will make and not just like narrative threads that the character of James goes through. Because what the player does is an extension of James's psyche and
Hmm.
James's actions. So if you, as the player, are rushing, are doing certain things a certain way, or not doing things a certain way, that's going to affect James's narrative arc. And all of this is to say, I really do think this is a genius work of demonstrating the idea of Ludo narrative because you can get invested in doing everything the right way to satisfy the demands of the game. Or you can
Hmm.
not do that if you're not that kind of person. And Silent Hill 2 is a completely different experience for those two people because its endings and the tone of them respond to those different modes of engagement. With all that said, all that complicated stuff said, yeah, let's talk about the first hour of the game. I think I realized what I knew this game was doing when I got that little insert line from James and I wrote it down that said, "Nothing else to do here. Guess I'll get back to looking for Mary."
Yep. There you go.
Which
You don't
for
need much
some
more of that.
reason, which for some reason struck a chord with me as like, oh, what is James's sense of agency actually? Like, what is James's goal here? Because as a protagonist, James is so flighty and inconsistent as a
Hmm.
person from the very beginning. Because you get this opening cutscene where you're getting the letter from Mary about how, like, I've gone to our special place, and you see that James is clearly fixated on the possibility that his wife, Mary, who died 3 years ago, is somehow alive in Silent Hill and has reached out to him to come back to their special place, which ends up being a hotel in Silent Hill. But then immediately you start running into problems where James starts coming across as being a person that contains a lot of contradictions and contains a lot of hesitancies. And my big like galaxy brain thing about Silent Hill 2 and its connection to other literature honestly doesn't even come from me. It comes from the essay that I sent you about it, which talks a lot about Maria,
Yeah.
where but I'm going to make a larger connection because I just watched Lost Highway very recently and I talked about it in the
Ooh,
video that we
yeah.
did. And Megan Cubed in that essay talks about Maria and puts her and like just uses a still from Lost Highway in
Hmm.
there. But I want to go the full Monty of like if Lost Highway is a response to Vertigo, then Silent Hill 2 is a response to Lost Highway
Yeah,
where the
totally.
bridging into a new medium and the continuing of the surreal narrative devices and the use of the video game as a specific medium of storytelling allows the game to take what Lost Highway is saying about doppelgangers and fictionalized selves and renders it in a completely new context. And not just with the character of Maria, which is what Megan Cube's essay focuses on, but with the player as James. Because you're right, this game does become more clear on a second playthrough. Because Silent Hill 2 is about playing Silent Hill 2 and is about what you take away from the story and what you put back into it and what your behavior says about the character of James. Because just as Maria is a false product of the image of Mary, James is a false construct of the actions of the character or the actions of the player,
Hmm.
excuse me. And realizing that made this game make so much sense for me. Not that this illuminates some kind of singular, very meta narrative meaning about what Silent Hill 2 is about, but that was the thing that I felt like I discovered about the game that I never heard before
Yeah.
with regard to its themes, is the Rorschach test that it pulls on you, the player, by making your actions so integral to what the story of the game ends up being. Because it's not just like, oh, you didn't collect all the things. It's you behaved a certain way when trying to get through the game. You made James exhibit some kind of behavior that ultimately affects his outcome. And he is as much subject to your actions as Maria is to James's actions and James's images of other people. But I've kind of skipped to the end on a lot of this, and I've gotten into the weeds on a lot of what I ended up getting out of the game experience. But help me articulate like what the first hour of this game does so uniquely and does so differently, because I think there's a lot there. I just kind of don't know where to start in terms of talking about the game from the beginning.
Silent Hill 2 has one of the most like commonly cited and just most beloved kind of opening sections because I mean it's like it's very iconic, but like I played a little bit of it myself in the past 2 weeks in order to kind of acclimate myself to sort of reevaluate my own thoughts on this. And God, I mean, hasn't lost a step naturally, but playing the opening hour of this game does so much with so little. And not in the sense that it's like you look at Silent Hill 2 and it inherently looks like the product of limitations. Like, if anything, Silent Hill 2 is just a very handsome looking game. Like, I think it's aged incredibly well. And I didn't even like, there is different versions of it available to play. I have the director's cut from the PlayStation 2 is the version that I experienced. And the
Yeah, that's
version
what I ended up playing as well. So I played what is the initial like graphics rendering of the game, the director's cut. Is Born from a Wish the only addition in the director's cut, or does it
I
change the main
I
game at
don't
all?
believe so. I think that that there is a lot more done in the like HD collection, and there's also like the most ideal way to experience Silent Hill 2 is with like there is a series of mods you can kind of install for a version of the game that I think comes from the director's cut that basically like updates all the textures to be in HD and stuff, but I kind of wanted to play the PlayStation 2 version of it just to get that original feeling and all of its grandeur. But I love the opening of this game so much. Like the mere image that it kind of opens on. You get the ambient score from Akira Yamaoka, and it's just the shot of James in the the rest station bathroom. And he like looks at himself and he just kind of stares, and then he does this thing where he just goes, and that always really stood out to me for some reason because, like, why does he do that? Like, I was always just kind of like, what is, I don't, I don't understand. And it's like, you eventually kind of loop back around to the fact that it's just like the body language and behavior of all of these characters is so like fundamentally broken. There is something strange about the way that every character in this game moves, the way every character speaks, that immediately lets you know that something is deeply wrong with everybody. Like James is speaking in this like tone of voice that feels incredibly detached. And naturally, I'm sure that most people know this, but the voice direction for the English dub of Silent Hill 2 was unique because the voice director was the Japanese voice director, and he hired English, mostly inexperienced voice actors and directed their line reads phonetically, as in like syllable by syllable, which is why all of the line reads in this game sound like fucking aliens are reading them. Like you have that initial sort of read of just James, and like I experienced that, and you kind of immediately feel like, oh, this is an older like PS2 game, voice acting, a little wonky. And then you have the first character interaction in the game where you leave the rest stop and then you walk through the woods and you go to this cemetery. And there is a character there, And this interaction is just such a bizarre example of two people meeting and talking, and it tells you so much about the game and these people without really directly stating anything in like a traditional expository sense. Because James comes across this woman who is in this cemetery, and she says that she's looking for her family. And like, when you try to ask the question why anyone in this game does anything, the answer is completely elusive to you because it's like, wait a minute, why are you looking for your family in a graveyard? Oh. Like, and that's how you play the game. You have to continually ask your questions of just like, why is this person doing this? And then you come to the answer and you're like, oh, it's just not immediately stated to you. You have to think a little bit creatively with what the game gives you. And James is like, I'm here looking for my wife. And the person in the cemetery who, she's got a little sweater on and she speaks so strangely. Like she's got this weird reaction to like when he like goes and approaches her and she's like, "Woo!" Like she's got this weird like melodramatic cadence to her voice and she's talking and she's like, this is a weird place. You got to be careful around here. Things are dangerous here. And James just does not care. Just completely water off a duck's back. He does not give a shit about his own well-being. He does not care about whether or not he's in danger. He just knows he has to be there to be able to find his dead wife. And this interaction is so interesting because it basically tells you that like Silent Hill is immediately an abstract concept. Silent Hill is just not a place. It is, you are walking into this town, and what I love about the journey to the graveyard here is that while you're walking, like the sound will kind of fade out after you leave the kind of parking lot. And then what I didn't remember happening was that like as you walk through this path and you kind of getting used to those really clunky tank controls, and then you start hearing footprints. You start hearing something like rustling in the woods behind you, and you're like, "Wait, what the fuck is that?" And like you keep going, and then there's like these creature noises, and you're like, "What the shit?" And like the sound design is immediately such a standout. Like the game looks so hazy and there's just this like this grainy filter around everything and it looks like the way I would describe the look of Silent Hill 2 is that it looks post-punk. There is something about the way this game
Yeah.
is so jagged and so off kilter and so everything is right but it's just moved a little bit to the left. So you go and you have this interaction with this character in the graveyard and it immediately sets the tone super duper weird. You just don't really know what to expect from these people and what they're doing here. You immediately get the notion that like every time you encounter someone, they are also trapped in a way that you're trapped. And they
Yeah.
immediately make it known why and kind of how. In the case of Angela, she's looking for her family. When you come across Eddie, it's because he's grappling with something that he may or may not have done. And, this just kind of keeps escalating every time you encounter something that is important that happens in this narrative. But the way I love just the setting of Silent Hill 2. Like Silent Hill itself is just this city that like it looks like it was abandoned because of like nuclear fallout, like the fog and everything, but like there's all these cars that are parked on the side of the road that are empty and abandoned and it's like what happened? Why isn't anybody here? And there's just this persistent emptiness. Everything looks industrial and rusty and rugged and deteriorated and hazy and strange. And something about that makes sense to you. Something about everything just begins to congeal. And that culminates when you find the first monster. And James is surprised, but not in the way that a normal person would be if they found a monster. He's just like, oh shit, bop, 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 bop. And then he kills it. And then he's like, what the fuck is this thing? But he just keeps continuing onward. And his persistence, you're just kind of like, no person would react like this. Exactly. No person, no normal person, no well-adjusted person would react the way any of these people react because they are all broken. All of these people are facsimiles of themselves. They are shells that are hollowed out, and you have to discover why it is that you've all been drawn to this place and what it is you're looking for and what it is that this environment means to these people. And that's all done in like the first 90 minutes of the game.
And once this game really hits its stride and you start really exploring the town and trying to find things and trying to find more answers to things, we see more situations where the themes of the game really come forward. Like when Maria, all of a sudden, when you get into a wing of a hospital, just
Hmm.
lays down in a bed and refuses to get up. And then she's wondering aloud kind of what her role is in James's story and what she has left to do because Maria is the only person who really seems like she doesn't know why she's there. She doesn't really know what's keeping her here. She doesn't really know what to do. And so she just kind of keeps following James around and, flirting with him a little bit. And he really tries to look at her tits and she really doesn't let him. It's
Hmm.
so funny, the blocking of the character models, the way that they're like fully turning around like this, and James is just like creeping around trying to get another look at her boobs. And
And like you get this feeling that like there I know that the voice acting is like a common thing people bring up, just like, uncanny, Lynchian, all that stuff, and that's true. However, I feel like it is sorely undervalued that there are voice performances in this game that don't just achieve what this specific effect accomplishes, but like very specifically Mary and Maria, done by Monica Taylor Horgan, I believe her name is, who, as far as I'm aware, has like never worked in voice acting like in games like ever again, which I think is absolutely astonishing because every line read this woman has in this game cuts you like a fucking knife.
yeah,
Every time
she's
Maria
brilliant.
opens her mouth and she's like, I'm real, see? And it's like there's this venom to every word she speaks that's like really antagonistic, but there's also like a gentleness to her that's like alluring and inviting. But every time she talks, and when she gets upset and angry with James, like I remember the line read of, anyway, what do you mean anyway? Like it's so like deeply fucking uncomfortable, and you're just like, I don't like listening to this lady. Like she's so fucking like there is something acidic about her words that just feels so corrosive, and you don't there is something about her that feels wrong. And whenever you are exposed to like an image of Mary in any context, she's like just different enough. Again, it's like Silent Hill itself. It's like a normal town, but everything is shifted slightly to the left. There's something more appealing, more sexual about her that she tries to like you get the immediate idea that it's like this is an idealized version of this person. But the distinction of naming her something different means that this is supposed to suit a completely different function than an echo of this character. So you start asking the question of like, what does this mean? Like, what actually is she to James? And ultimately, you come to the conclusion that she is kind of a manifestation of what James's wish fulfillment of his wife was. This is the horse blinders that you use when recalling your memories of somebody in order to recall the best version of them. The one that doesn't have all of the problems and thorny issues that a real person has. The things that, will eventually like, that if they are revealed to be ill or dying or something, all of those complexities go away when you look at Maria and she's just, she's there. She's in her cute little outfit and her little skirt and she's all flirty and, she's got the cleavage and it's like, oh, okay. And that shot of her just like looking at James is just it's so striking. Like I love the cinematography of this game. Like every time like the actual cinematic presentation of these cutscenes is so well blocked. It's so well shot. Like everything looks so well. It's not about just like how nice the graphics are. It's about how you're shown what you're shown. And because of that fixed camera, Silent Hill is able to be like really sculpt a specific experience because of just how tight of a rein they have on what you're seeing. That fixed camera is important because it allows the game developers to always know what you are supposed to be experiencing, what you're supposed to be feeling at a given time. There's not a lot of looseness to the design of this game. Like you can be exploring and trying to find your way around a riddle or a puzzle, but there's never a moment in which I'm playing Silent Hill where I feel particularly lost necessarily.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling because there's so many like clearly placed sound cues throughout the game. Where like
Sound design.
as your character's
Oh,
walking through a specific point, you're gonna hear a sound effect play, but they're always like so well timed. Like there's a moment again in the hospital, you're hearing this like
ooh. Mm.
breathing sound. You're just hearing something breathe. And then you walk into the room
Oh
where
my.
Maria was, and Maria's not there, but you hear what sounds like a beating heart.
Yes.
Like
And
it
it's
sounds
just,
like, and then you just have to walk away, like because it
or
doesn't stop.
one
It
of my
doesn't
favorite
stop
moments that
happening.
like I always forget about is right after you leave the graveyard after the conversation with Angela and you're like you're making your way into Silent Hill and you just hear this screeching metallic shear that's echoing in the background and it's like what the fuck is that, and you keep walking and that gets like more, the more you get into Silent Hill the more distant the sound becomes. And it's like it's kind of like what I told you when we talked about the Silent Hill movie last year, is that Silent Hill is phenomenal at horror because it just understands how to create a moment and then feels no need to explain it because it's like because it's spooky, it's horror, it's atmosphere. Like we don't need to didactically explain to you what these little moments mean because they're going to mean something to you as you experience them. Like I don't want to know what makes that noise. That's the crazy sheer noise. Like I don't want to see the creature that does that. You never see it, but you know that the sound is there and it allows your brain to fill in the gaps and you're immediately like fight or flight, gotta run, gotta get out of here, gotta get a weapon. You're instantly helpless. And because of the control scheme of the game, that feeling of helplessness, no matter what weapon you get, no matter what you discover, you are always helpless to some extent in this game. No matter what you encounter, you feel like you are behind the curve. You feel like every combat encounter in this game is a puzzle that you have to solve.
Again, to go back to the Luigi's Mansion comparison, it's so interesting playing this kind of game because, yeah, if you're encountering multiple enemies in a space, there is no strategy for a button prompt that you use to beat a specific monster. It is,
Nope.
you have to stop this thing from touching you. And that's what the combat is.
Mhm.
And it's one thing when you're out on the open streets of Silent Hill, but it's another when you're inside a room,
Close
inside of a
corridors.
building. Those close quarters combat sequences are so unnerving just because you're like, I'm outnumbered. I have nowhere to go. I attack very slowly. I can only attack one thing at a time. Like the worst thing you can encounter in Silent Hill 2 is more than one enemy at a time. It
Yeah, it doesn't matter
immediately
what they
raises
are.
this it immediately raises the stakes of what you have to think about and what you have to be able to do to be able to keep James alive. It's really well done combat that doesn't feel like anything I've ever experienced before because I mean, yeah, these things have health bars and they can only take so many hits, but when you're in the moment, it doesn't feel that way because you never have
No.
any indication that you're doing damage or
Yeah,
that things are dead.
there's
You
not
never,
like UI in Silent Hill 2
yeah,
necessarily.
there's
Like
no user interface when you're not like in the inventory or looking at a map.
it's purely immersive. And even when you're looking at the map, the light effects of the game affect the what you can see on your map. Like that's such an ingenious design move on the game devs' part. Like being able to have that kind of consistency carry over into your menus is just something that like games didn't do that. In fact, games still don't really often do something like that. It's a genuinely kind of bold design decision that I really respect and admire, and the way that you kind of make it through the game and you keep sort of like the only real checkpoints that happen in Silent Hill games, and specifically this one, are when you encounter somebody and you have like a cutscene or when you discover like a really significant area. Like the only time I feel like you feel safe in Silent Hill 2 in any context is when you go into Heaven's Night. That is the only time I ever feel safe inside Silent Hill because it's just this vibey fucking lodge ass Twin Peaksy fucking place that I'm just like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm safe in here for some reason.
Silent Hill 2, I found to be a very interesting narrative experience because I ended up, I don't know, part of me feels like I've taken the most simple route in trying to understand the characters in this game, but that's the way that it feels most true to me for what the game is, which is that I
Mhm.
see every character that James encounters as reflecting some sort of element of his psyche,
Mhm.
even in their unique personality traits. Like Eddie is an extension of James, Angela, Laura, Maria, all of them are different extensions of how James feels about this situation that he hasn't been able to fully resolve. And it goes back to like classic Freudian dialectics of like
Mhm.
the reason that you have a problem, like you have a psychological problem, is because you haven't finished having an internal conversation with your subconscious.
Mhm.
That's what talk therapy was all about. And that's why like Freud and all those guys would just sit there and let people talk to themselves because they thought that was the most effective way to wrestle with the subconscious. Because nobody else can get in there. All these other characters represent moments of dialogue that James is having with other elements of his subconscious. When he talks about the ethics of killing people with Eddie,
Mhm.
that comes after we learn the truth about what happened to Mary. And so James is revealing something about himself, not just by, like, the game reveals something about James by having him see Eddie, having Eddie be a person who enjoys killing, and then having James deny that that is even possible.
Yeah.
Like, Eddie must not be human because you can't enjoy killing to be human. And every encounter that he has with somebody, James doesn't realize it, but he is learning something about himself and what he has gone through that has brought him here. Every encounter with Maria, every encounter with Angela guides James towards what the conclusion of the game is, which is I ended up getting, I'll just go ahead and say it. I ended up getting the good ending of the three traditional ones that you can get in the first playthrough of the game, where James and Laura end up leaving town together. And
Oh,
I'm not
interesting.
exactly sure how I got it, but I just kept thinking about I kept looking at the letter. Like every now and again, I would just keep reading the letter from Maria. And I think that has something to do with it.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
probably.
sure.
There
I don't
honestly,
know what the game I don't know what the game is checking for in terms of the endings that you get, but I know that one is specific of like make sure
yes.
that you're looking at the letter at least once or twice is like a thing that I saw in the walkthrough. But I don't know. What I want to say is that I found this to be a very interesting depiction of a talk therapy session.
Hmm.
Because if I look at these characters explicitly, maybe not even literally psychological extension of James that don't exist, but like thinking about them that way, of every character representing some part of James's kind of fractured understanding of the situation that he's in, made a lot of what's going on in the game made sense to me and ultimately made the ending make sense to me in conversation with the whole like the ending reflects not just James as a character but also player behavior
Hmm.
because ultimately what this game is about is that James is reckoning with the guilt of having killed Mary after Mary got sick and having to deal with all the weird ambiguities that you talk yourself through when something traumatic like that happens to you. Because that's the thing is that James killing Mary is framed as a thing that happened to James in a lot of
Hmm.
respects. Like the things that led to the situation where he felt like that was what he needed to do is treated as a traumatic scenario, right?
Hmm.
The point at which the only thing you can think to do is killing a person. There's a lot of trauma that has to happen before that, and the game
Yes.
explores all those moments as well. And James, ultimately, the different endings of the game situate James in different states of acceptance with what he's ended up doing. But the thing that has always stayed consistent is that James has to understand that he wanted something to hold him accountable. And I
Yes.
think that's so fascinating. Like, no matter how James feels about what he did, he knows that he needed to be punished for it.
Yes. I think that the most interesting thing about this is that I both do and do not see every character in the game as kind of being a reflection of James, because on the one hand, yeah, they are all kind of, as you said, sort of a Rorschach kind of ink blot test to see what reflects parts of you and your experience into them. But I think the ultimate thesis of Silent Hill 2 is really that everyone has their own Silent Hill 2. It's less that these people exist to be psychological sort of extensions of James, in that everyone becomes psychological extensions of each other in a place like Silent Hill, where your, the things that happen to you are abstracted and then literalized as monsters and environments and places. And it's why trying to kind of view everyone through the lens of one another ends up being so revealing. It's why, like, the line read that Guy Seehey, the guy who voices James, has as soon as he kills Eddie is always something that like lodged itself in my brain, the way he just goes, I killed a human being. And then he just kind of lets it hang. And he's like, a human being. And that's the moment when it clicks for him. It's like everything sort of shifts, and that's the moment where he kind of realizes and everything floods back to him. But the way in which I think Silent Hill is most effective, I think is the best way to talk about it, is through, I don't know if this is maybe like my favorite character in a game, but like Angela in this game, her presence in this like really, really hit me this time around. Like I always remember her segments being some of the most affecting moments when I was younger, but like now that I'm older and I take a look at those parts, that's the part of the game that really just kind of gets me the most. Like her very timid and very kind of reactionary sort of just she's so addled. She's so like she's just a bundle of raw nerves who's surprised when even she is lightly touched by someone. She feels like a live wire whenever you interact with her. And the more that you discover about her and the more you encounter her, like there's that interaction that they have where James has to kind of take the knife from her, where she's just kind of like looking at it. And then the game is able to say and do so much with Angela's story without ever really explicitly saying anything about what happened to her. You really just kind of vicariously experience details and sensory information that lets you draw your own conclusion. You start to like the way that she talks about her mother, the way that you like when you're approaching her in the building and you sort of see like or you hear her just sort of exclaiming against like her father and stuff, and ultimately you face down the monster, the abstract daddy, the enemy, which is just like this writhing creature that's on something else on this bed, and you're like, ah, I see, I get it.
Yeah. And
And
there's a key moment with Angela, which is that you walk into a room and Angela's at the higher up on the staircase, and you see that
oh,
the staircase is on fire, but Angela is just standing there like nothing is wrong. And
most
James asks, huh?
it's the most famous, I think, line in the game, which is like, I mean, maybe my favorite line in the whole game is just for me, it's always like this. And it's like, there has never been a better distillation of pain in like a single line that I feel like I've ever experienced, other than just the image of her on the burning staircase and just that simple statement. It's so like you hear you like she says it. And like the most painful part of Silent Hill 2 to me was something that I didn't expect it, because it does come from Angela, but it's when she has this interaction with James and she adopts this tone in her voice that you've never heard her talk with, that honestly sounds very close to the tone of voice that Maria speaks with when she goes, do you want to save me? Like she mocks James for the mere
Yes.
notion that
Yes.
James could like thinks that he could save her, which reflects beautifully on James because of the whole Mary thing, but it also tells you so much more about Angela, that she's just like offended at the notion to like, don't try and give me hope. I know I'm beyond saving, so don't do this hero shit, man. Don't try and like lift me out of this only to let me go. Like she knows that he, of all people, is not going to be able to help her. She doesn't think anybody can. But James is his own fucking pathetic mess. There's no way that he could possibly help her. They cannot help each other. I mean, that's like, Eddie, for instance, I mean, like, he is just completely gone. Like, there is no helping that dude because he's either so in denial of what he did that he's just unwilling to face reality, or once he accepts reality, he fully embraces becoming a monster. He's just like, it doesn't matter what happened to Eddie. It's just like he is gleefully accepting that because he has an inclination towards darkness, he just lets it all in. He's like, fuck it. It's like Eddie is kind of, he's his own character, but he is in a way reflective of James's attitude towards Mary, where it was just kind of like, fuck it. The best way to solve my problem here is by embracing the worst version of myself.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody clearly has their own kind of test that's being given to them by being present in Silent Hill, or this kind of thing that's weighing them down. And you're right, Eddie gets over his problems by
Hmm.
embracing the darkness within him. Angela keeps, I don't know, what's interesting about Angela is that despite the ways that she can lash out, and despite some of her early appearances where she's very clearly like drained and dejected and distant from James emotionally, she has a certainty about herself at the end of the day, of the fact that she will be resilient through whatever gets thrown at her,
Hmm.
and that nobody can save her from any of the past, present, or future pain that's coming to her. And I love what it represents for James, which is that it cripples him when he realizes that he is unable to protect her.
Hmm.
And I mean, that reflects on his relationship with Angela as it's developing throughout the game, but that also says something about how he felt about Mary,
He was
right?
helpless.
Him, this thing that was out of his control that he couldn't do anything about consumed his psyche and made him feel in a state of disarray. It's so interesting.
I I love that there are some things in the game that really you can't even really put two and two together, and you kind of have to just come to your own conclusion about it. And one of those things is I love seeing what people have to say about Laura, because the game does not really inform a greater purpose as to why Laura is even there or what she symbolizes or means. And I like seeing and interpreting how people read that just because I feel like it says something about the way they experience the game. But to me, anyway, the way I always, like, the way I see Laura is that it's in the scene where she accuses James of just she's like, you're a murderer, you killed her. And it's like clearly, we're seeing James filtering his own guilt through someone else, obviously. But to me, Laura's like explicit lack of explanation invites like, okay, then what does she mean? Well, who is she? Why is she here? To me, I feel like Laura is kind of a projection of like it's the future child that Mary and James never had.
Yeah, I mean,
It
Mary, there's
is
a letter from Mary where she talks about wanting to adopt Laura. Laura represents the future that they could have had, and getting the lake ending, or not the lake ending, Jesus Christ, getting the getting the ending where you leave town with Laura, and that being like the positive ending feels like an extension of that, where like James has accepted the compromises of his future in a certain sort of way by having that moment of confrontation with Laura, and accepting that like that future doesn't exist anymore. There might be a future with Laura, but there's not a future with like a child between him and
it's a
Mary.
compromised future. It's not a future that any of those people ever wanted. It is, in fact, it is kind of settling in that way. It's like that being like the only real tangible detail about the character invites a lot of reason as to like, again, what purpose exactly does she serve as a cog in the machine of this narrative? But like in once you get to the endings, I feel like it does illuminate that a lot. And another thing I just something that I don't remember. I think it's just because it was so heavy at the time I experienced it that I like partially shut it out, I guess, is just like I'm not sure how much of it you experience because of the ending you get, because I forget what is in which of the endings to the game, but like specifically the in-water ending of Silent Hill 2, where Mary reads the entirety of the extended letter to James. I I mean, don't get me wrong. The entirety of the voice acting in this game, I think, is remarkably successful. Regardless of whether or not it is intentional or not, I think it adds a depth to that game that is essential. I'm pretty sure there's a version of the game that was released that has updated voice acting, and I would never in a fucking million years play that version of the game. I would be willing to embrace it if it's a wholly deconstructed thing, like with the Silent Hill 2 remake, which I know has different voice acting, but it's a specific thing that suits a specific choice. But to me, it's all worth it. Even if the uncanniness of the dialogue and voice acting doesn't work for you, it's worth it to reach the ending where you hear Monica Taylor Horgan read that letter, and it is the most soul-wrenching shit I have ever heard. Like you get the prelude that you kind of get in the beginning of the game, and it just kind of keeps going, explaining Mary, like you finally get Mary's perspective on what happened. You get to see, like, because the game does such a great job at making you understand why James did what he did. Like you don't agree with it, you don't necessarily like, but obviously it's like, yeah, I get why someone put into his position would have done something like that. And the game, again, it does a great job at least getting you to understand, if not sympathize with him. And then flipping this around and getting it from her perspective is that the helplessness that James feels is intensified by a million because she is also clearly feeling completely helpless and demonstrating that to James, but being unable to communicate with him, being frustrated, being angry, like she's parsing through all of her emotions, and you see that cutscene of how they initially interacted with each other and how she shut him out. Like the most painful moment of this game that doesn't involve Angela to me is the moment where she's like shutting him out and telling him to leave and telling him to like fuck off and go away. And then like you just like it's
Calling for him
silent.
to come back.
Yeah, and then she just
Yeah.
starts sobbing quietly, and she's like, "No, no, no, come back, come back, come back," because she wants him to push through her barriers to be able to get to her. Like she wants him to overcome that so that he can get to meet her at the place that she's at, essentially. But James is unable to confront the reality. He just can't do it. And when she's taught, like her talking about just the process of knowing that she's going to die, being frustrated by it, and then just her working out her own feelings on it is such a like it's a cathartic moment to hear someone who, you've heard suffer try to talk through their own feelings and get to a conclusion that they ultimately come to that's somewhat satisfying. But like hearing that, it's kind of impossible, like not to not to make things like too heavy or anything, but like if you've ever had somebody in your life who has been ill or at the end of their life and you've seen them, they're like them have to confront the reality of that. It's the closest that I've seen a piece of media get to how difficult that feels. Like I read Mary's letter at the end of this game, and vividly I recall many some years ago when I was in the hospital and I was confronted by the fact that my grandfather was passing. And I saw him basically come to the conclusion that he did not know if he actually believed that there was an afterlife afterwards. And I heard him say things that are like borderline right out of this letter to my mother. And seeing that and experiencing that again, and I was like, something some real pain went into this. I don't know from where or from who, but it's an honest experience that I remember feeling moved by. And now that I'm older and now that I have seen that happen to someone and seeing that thought process myself, there you can talk about how, the silly voice acting might not have the effect on you that you want it to, or the older game design might be able to hold anything back, but the script of Silent Hill 2 is so foundationally solid, none
Yeah.
of those things fucking matter.
Yeah. The full letter is just such a great monologue. And the score underneath it as it's delivered to you is
Hmm.
so essential as well. I don't know, the score is also so important
Oh,
because I don't know if the score changes in between the three endings, but
I believe it does.
when Maria gets introduced, there's a little bit of a leitmotif that begins to play where there's
Hmm.
like some higher octave chords and some softer instrumentation happening here. You get stuff similar to that if you get the ending that I got, which is the like leave town ending. There's something to the notion of acceptance that comes with that ending. But I do ultimately want to talk more about the other endings of the game. And God, I can't imagine if I had played this for the first time and I'd gotten like the in water ending and read the letter for the first time, because that completely changes the tone of the entire game
Oh
if that's
yeah.
the ending that you get. Um,
I
you know,
believe that is the canon ending. I believe, not that I really
I
take
don't
much stock in
care.
that. Yeah, if
I
you're
don't
gonna have
care.
multiple endings, if it doesn't, don't bother making one canon if you have multiple endings. Like, I think that's kind of dumb. But regardless, to me that's like my ending of the game. Like, to me, that's the one that completes the version of the game that I experienced the most. And I feel like that's a valid read for any of the endings because none of them, well, I don't know if you know about all the endings to this game, but most of them do feel like they fit into the experience that you played the game with.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that by the time you get James to a point where he can leave town and accept this, like you feel like that's the direction that the game has gone. Like when James says, "I know now what I need to do. I needed something to punish me, but now it's time to end this." That little snippet of monologue hits very differently depending on how you've been playing the game, because it's either James accepting what he's done and accepting that he has to find a future, or it's him so entrenched in denial that he's completely turned into Eddie, where like his suicidality and his delusions with regard to Mary have just completely consumed him. It's a really interesting script because there are so many moments where, when thinking about the game's multiple endings, moments in the game take on a different tonality, even if they are not executed any differently between the versions of the game that you're playing. And then I want to also talk about, have you played Born from a Wish before? Did you play it for this? Can
I
we
have
talk about it?
only I have only read about Born from a Wish. I have not actually played it. No.
Ah, so I ended up playing Born from a Wish, which is a very short bit of supplemental gameplay where you, as Maria, before the story has begun, you find Maria in her apartment about to kill herself.
Yep.
And then she just decides not to. And the interesting thing about Born from a Wish is that this is where the real response to Lost Highway comes in for me, because
Yes.
Maria finds her way to this mansion and gets into dialogue with this character that we never see, named Ernest, who they kind of talk about the mysticism of Silent Hill in a way that I think is interesting. Like they mentioned some of the cult stuff comes up, but it ends up, I wrote down a couple lines that I just want to tell you. I pulled up the wrong sticky note because I was legitimately about to say, if you were my ex-wife, and thought that it was a line from the script, that I accidentally pulled up the Walker Hayes
Well, I
section of
mean, in a manner
notes.
of speaking.
They have this little exchange where they say, Maria asks Ernest if miracles can really happen. And Ernest just says, "This is Silent Hill." And Maria says, "Maybe that's the problem."
I now
There's
that you
more
mention
to
it,
it
I
than
really
that,
like
so I'm
that.
presenting it without the full context. But there's a lot of dialogue between them, and Ernest ends up saying, and this is I think the key to Born from a Wish, they start talking about James, and
Hmm.
Ernest says, Ernest is warning her about James, and he says he's looking for the you that isn't you. And that's it. It's Maria coming to terms with being a construct, is
which
all of
is,
what Born from a Wish is about.
and I mean, what's the title? Born from a Wish, whose wish? Put it all together. To me, I think Silent Hill 2, and I didn't really think this before just because, I sort of simplified it as just kind of being what its themes were about, and that's kind of what it was in my head. And after experiencing a lot of it again, I think I came to the conclusion that Silent Hill 2 is more or less, I can't remember who said this, but it is a quote, and it is the most painful thing that you can do to another person is ruin their image of who they are. And I feel like Silent Hill 2 is what that is. It creates an environment that allows its characters to have their illusion of themselves shattered before them. And ultimately, it's about what you find under that self-image and what that says about you when you confront it. Every single character has a different reaction to ultimately confronting their own truth. Like Eddie, for example, embraces the truth that he has monstrous tendencies and thus becomes a monster. Angela embraces her truth by persevering, existing because it's all she knows how to do. There's nothing to fight back against. There's nothing to like the things that happened to her happened in the past, but in the way that she puts it, they are happening to her eternally. It's always like this. James, the ending of the game is you embracing what part of yourself you behave as during the game. And in that way, like, think about it like this without, like, that's the direct line from like Silent Hill to like the lineage of like Undertale. Like, the influence this game has had over games cannot be understated. And the way in which it is kind of permeated horror in particular, like, there are so many games that have just tried to redo what Silent Hill 2 does. And because so few works of art are willing to like grapple with the things that it does, even the B minus versions of Silent Hill 2 are like beloved games that people love because this is just, it's such a rich idea that gaming as a medium is like built for. Like, this is such a
Yeah.
congruent, I mean, medium is the message. It is so, it feels like one of the first times that gaming as a medium truly embraced itself and understood what it was capable of. And that's why I think it's kind of seen the way it is. But I mean, really,
In so many ways, it becomes that by, I'm going to say a thing that sounds stupid. It becomes more by dealing with it not in video game terms, right? The lack of a user interface in this game is so important as to why it works for me. It's why to engage with what this game is trying to do, you have to go a little bit deeper. You have to think about what the images mean. You have to think about like how to how does what you know about the Freudian dialectic and whatnot influence your understanding of the game? Because you're not going to have you're not going to have the Doki Doki Literature Club moment where, oh no, I have to delete files on my computer and then the
no,
story will progress.
it's,
It's like, no, you are entrenched in a narrative that isn't
yes.
just a game where you have to figure out what you're supposed to do. It's a game that really challenges you to figure out how you feel about it in a lot
Hmm.
of ways, I think. Because having sympathy and having empathy with the plight of these characters is what makes Silent Hill 2 so interesting to think about and talk about. Because then it's not just a cool video game, it's then an interesting story about characters that represent people whose lives I've tried to understand or moments that I've been at in my own life. Like going beyond the it's a cool video game understanding of it gets you to those places.
Silent Hill becomes like, it's kind of what you said in the Silent Hill becomes about you playing Silent Hill, and that's why it's meaningful is because Silent Hill is a nebulous location that is allowed to sort of abstractly deal with its characters' problems, and thus Silent Hill becomes your Silent Hill. And like, there is something about this location in this game that's just like all of these themes and all of these things are like they're great and they're rich and they're wonderful and they are a lot of the reason why I love this game, but a lot of it too is just like being there, just experiencing the interiors of these dimly lit hallways and these rusty alleyways and these monsters that just look a little bit human but also a little bit not. And it's like, man, the moment like I remember this clearly is like the moment I realized that like this was a work of art, like as a teenager playing this game, was in kind of one of those moments in which Mary is talking to James. It's kind of like one of those flashbacks, and it's just the moment where she blatantly says, I look like a monster. And it's like when I was a teenager, everything in my brain was just like, oh my God, every monster in this game is reflective of how James sees Mary. Like every single one of them. Like the abstract daddy is a reflection of Angela's trauma, sure, but like all of the monsters are about being bound, being restrained. Like Mary, being bound to a bed, being restrained to an object. And like beds are like this imagery that keeps repeating throughout the game that you keep seeing recontextualized. And the monsters get like weirder and weirder as you keep going. They become more like constructs and less like organic things. And they start to, the way that they like contort and move becomes reflective of how like a sick body might move and contort in the same way. And then I remember just like realizing that is not like, it's not like a huge twist or anything. It's not like a moment or like, and it's not subtle or whatever. But like
Yeah,
as a
like James
kid,
doesn't look at the camera and say, the monsters, they look just like Mary. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
you do have to do a bit of like fictional calculus to still come to your own conclusion there. And that's when everything just kind of locks into place. And it's why like it's why Silent Hill's been a frustrating franchise to even like come up with, just because the idea of Silent Hill is such a rich horror concept, and to see it like continually be wasted potential over and over and over again. Getting to experience Silent Hill 2 in the midst of a Silent Hill renaissance felt so very different, because I didn't have the negative feeling of like, but we'll never get anything like this again. It's
I
like
was
I
just say
still
we could
haven't
have had it this
played
good the whole time. And
like
maybe we will. Maybe we
honestly,
will
but like
again.
I haven't played Silent Hill F yet, but like everything I've read about that game, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait. Like even people who are like, yeah, the gameplay doesn't necessarily like this, and this about it, but they're like, the story is great. And I'm like, honestly, that's the thing that matters the most at the end of the day, is just the characters and the story. Like, yes, the gameplay obviously is integral to how you experience Silent Hill 2. But as long as you put these meaningful stories in these games and you utilize the Silent Hill concept, that's the most important thing. And I've seen the developer interview with Silent Hill Townfall, and like I'm really rooting for that game, because the way they talk about it is the way that we're talking about Silent Hill 2. Like, and it makes me be like, I want them to like, I basically, it's like what I said with Evil Dead being the best horror franchise because a bunch of people are coming in and getting to do their own spin on it. That
Yeah.
seems to be like Bloober Team's getting to do their own thing. Konami's getting people to do Silent Hill Townfall, and we've got Silent Hill F, which is also like Bloober Team getting to do their own specific thing that is completely new and not bound to Silent Hill 2. I still have yet to play the remake, but I'm waiting for like the moment where I'm like, yes, I want to play the Silent Hill 2 remake right now, because it's different. Like, I'm gonna have to do some manual overriding in my head when playing the Silent Hill 2 remake to interpret like normal voice acting in that game is gonna be weird. Like it's gonna be weird to get used to that, to the characters talk like they normally do. Like
It's like,
James
oh yeah, people.
Sunderland talks like a normal, mopey, depressed guy, and it's like, huh, it's weird to hear him go there, to not go, what the hell is it?
Yeah, it's weird to not furrow your brow every time someone opens their mouth.
Yeah,
But guess
yeah,
what? You're gonna do that while playing the remake because
for sure,
of
for
the
sure.
effect that all of that has had on you.
So, in summation, how'd you
In
find it?
summation, my experience with this game was really interesting because, yeah, like I said, Silent Hill 2 is playing Silent Hill 2. And I just had such an intriguing
That's
experience
the lesson. That's what I
playing
wanted you to
this,
learn.
thinking about like you and the purposes of the show. Also thinking about like how am I genuinely connecting with this? How am I connecting with this as a larger cultural object? What's driving me through the game? Things like that. I don't think I fully understand my feelings on the game yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yes, I
Like I
completely see it.
love that I walked away from a video game and was just like, huh, I'm gonna need to think
Think,
about this for a really long time. Like
you don't
even
always
games that
get that.
even games that I've loved, it's been
Yeah.
forever since a game has left me knowing that I have things left to figure out and be satisfied by that notion. And so I think even as incomplete as my experience with the game feels, the promise of it, the promise that I have with myself, the potential to reap the reward of future revisitings and like engaging with this game more as time goes by. Any reservations that I may have about lacking of real full working knowledge of it, I can just kind of spin into a positive in that way.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is gonna get the full 5 points. I this has completely changed my life in a lot of
Woo!
ways.
Yeah. Do you wanna have a perfect grace note to go out on with this?
Sure.
Do
What's the deal?
you know about the other ending to this game?
The dog one, the
Yeah.
UFO
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I literally had the link loaded in the chat about ready to like hit fire if you hadn't seen it.
I've known about the dog ending for years, but I didn't know anything about the UFO ending
I
until
was
I
gonna say
started reading that
every Silent
walkthrough
Hill
website.
game has that ending where they do a weird fucking alien shit thing. And it's psychotic, honestly, because it's like, again, this is a game that talks about some really real shit, and you have an ending where it's a little Shiba Inu in a control room just being like, "Brr."
You did this. It was all you.
Man, if only the movie had ended up doing that, I might have respected it. But alas, here we are.
Man, I'm a little bit, I'm, I'm honestly feeling a little bit defeated. I'm feeling very dejected right now. I don't know. I don't know what.
I'm
Ah!
sorry, this has been such a such a wipe for you. I'm sorry. Like I want to embrace my heel turn tendencies here, and I can't even I can't even reach for the eye patch. I just feel
That's the thing is that now you've got to give me the bad thing to see like what you can torture me with.
that's the thing,
When
Jen.
the Walker Hayes segment, I am legitimately am gonna have to have a walk and like reassure myself that I'm good at this.
And you know what? It makes me legitimately terrified because I know this is gonna make you try harder. I
I
know
like
this is gonna incentivize you to get creative, which I'm terrified of.
Ugh.
All right, so I guess for the second time,
Let's give it everything we've got! It's punishment time!
I guess we're doing the roll with disadvantage is how you put it last time.
Yeah, yeah. I have to do a roll with disadvantage, or you have to do a roll with disadvantage. That's the
Okay,
thing. You get to
I've
pick, but it's all on you.
I didn't think about it, but I looked at my list. I've got it. We're doing a good and a bad.
Okay.
Good, easy, long overdue. Round three, full
Full
metal.
Metal round three.
Full Metal round three, baby. It's time. We're right on the precipice. This is going to be the third of four visits to this show. The other will be this will be a bad, and I am picking up where I was going to originally recommend this to you last year, but because you decisively mentioned it during the main chunk of the episode, completely by circumstance, I was like, fuck, I gotta pick something else now. So we're gonna revisit it.
The
Jen, we
hell,
are going to
man.
talk about a chapter in the career of a man that we have talked about many times. We are going to be talking about perhaps one of the least flattering moments from this man's career, and we are going to talk about Wes Craven's My Soul to Take.
I remember when I mentioned this. Why did I mention that?
I have no earthly idea, but I was just sitting there like, oh shit.
Why is that what came to my mind? Holy shit. My soul to take. Good Lord.
Uh, I
I
remember seeing
really know
previews for
nothing
this
about this movie.
all the time when I was in middle school.
I don't know anything about this movie other than that nobody fucking likes it. So
Exactly. Exactly. And I want to see what that looks like because, frankly, my Wes Craven opinions are weird as fuck. And I am eager to see where I land on this and where you land on this as the far more enthusiastic Craven appreciator. And I mean, I'm frankly just curious to see if this movie has things worth commenting on or worth complimenting because hell, maybe there are aspects of this that are a hidden gem. I could have no fucking idea. This is a complete gamble on my end, so let's fucking do it. So I guess that means what's your good?
this is this is really hard because I feel like I just got my shit rocked and I have no faith in my taste or my knowledge of you as a person. I'm just like, what the
It's
fuck?
only
What is
February, man. We're gonna kill each other by the end of this.
I've been taking L's, man. This is the thing, is that here's what's happening, right? What's happening to me right now is I'm at the dark middle chapter of Punished Gen, where I'm finally starting to realize that maybe I just can't fucking do this. And maybe
I believe in you. You can do this. As your friend, I believe in your ability to kick my ass. The incredible dichotomy of our show is that the way we have set this formula up is that the best way to get revenge on each other is by giving the other person something super good. So it's like doubly humiliating.
yeah,
I
I know,
didn't
because now
I
I'm just
didn't
like, oh great.
anticipate this wrench being thrown in our format, but it kind of works.
Yeah, because now I have to be like, what is really gonna impress? And that's where I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like I don't have the lead that lets me take risks, obviously. So I'm gonna give you a good recommendation with a very large caveat on it.
Go for it, baby.
We're gonna watch one of the few Mike Flanagan projects that I know you've never seen.
Ooh.
And I want to talk about it in a very specific way, which is that we are going to watch his Netflix series, The Midnight Club.
Oh, I've watched a couple episodes of this but never finished it. Okay. Okay, okay, okay. Awesome.
So, The Midnight Club got canceled, and
Yes, it did.
Flanagan released extensive notes on what he would have done to wrap up the show in a second season. But I don't want to talk about any of that. What I want to do is I want to specifically think about the idea of a canceled show. What makes a good canceled show? What makes a bad canceled show? What makes a show that got, cut off at the pass worth revisiting aside from just you being there when it happened?
Hmm.
And I want to see, like, is there something uniquely satisfying about watching a canceled show long after its grave has been, you know, cemented?
I get the wavelength. I understand. There is something appealing about the concept. I get that. Okay. Okay. All right. Midnight Club, Full Metal Alchemist, My Soul to Take. Next time on Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, when the midnight hour is at hand, will the soul be taken or transmuted? Find out next time.
I really do feel like my soul was taken by that Walker Hayes segment, so it fits.
You should have been there in the fucking truck with me when I had the sinking feeling in my chest of no, no,
This
not
can't
this
be.
one, not this one. Hey, you know what? Maybe you will pull a fucking Uno reverse with my soul to take.
This This show, if anything, is a testament to our honesty.
That was the thing is I was just like I don't want to give the impression that I'm like fucking bending myself over to get points on a show by saying that I like a Walker Hayes album. It's just like I'm prostituting myself. Like bleh, bleh.
We do this for the love of the game.
We do this for the love of the fucking game. I guess that means okay. And I also know what I'll recommend you next time.
Of course you fucking do.
I've already mentioned it before. You can probably guess. And if you don't, perfect. It'll still be a surprise.
Okay.
I've had the idea for so many good back-to-back episode ideas of something good and something bad to follow it up, and that's the first time I'll finally be able to do it.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Okay, I am going to go and rescue my wife. I'm sorry. I feel so bad about